Hi everyone, so I thought I'd do a bit of a review of the SkyTrak launch monitor. So with the SkyTrak, we've used it now for 2.5 years. We've gave a lot of golf lessons on it, and overall the performance of it has actually been really good. In terms of other launch monitors that are on the market, there's obviously Trackman, which we're about to upgrade to, that's a lot more expensive. The data is a lot more accurate on the Trackman, so the things that kind of let the SkyTrak down, in my opinion, which I'll explain a bit more in depth, are a couple of parts that the Trackman have got perfect. So Trackman obviously is fantastic. The technology on it is unbelievable. It's used by all of the top guys and girls, but the only problem with it is that obviously the price range on it is a lot higher. So for anybody that was sort of looking at, raising the roof of the shed or something like that, SkyTrak's actually really useful. So the settings that it has on it, so you kind of get this first screen up here. As soon as you're on this part, you've got a few options. So you've either got practice, challenge, or game improvement. A lot of the lessons that I do, we just do on the practice session. So on this part, in a second, you just come up with the range. As soon as you're on the range there, the red dot will appear. So once you've got the launch monitor set up, then the red dot then comes on the screen. You just grab the glove, and then once you're on there, really, you can fire some shots away. At the bottom part, you can select what club you've got. So you can select what club you've got there. You can change what club you got, and it will come out with different colours as well. So when you end up hitting a lot of shots, you can kind of see my 6-iron was going really well because the flight might be in red. The 8-iron was in white, and it was going a little bit more offline. So you can then start to pick up what club's working really well and what club's not. Once it's on the red dot, you just fire towards the screen. There's always a small delay with it as well. And then as soon as you hit the shot, the red dot then disappears. And then the ball flight then comes up. We've found carry distance and total distance is fairly accurate. It's set on 70 degrees, and it's set on a plain sort of day where there's no wind, but you can adjust the wind just at the top through the settings just on the side. And then the numbers that it gives you at the bottom, so you've got launch angle, backspin, ball speed, club speed, side spin and side angle. So obviously it doesn't measure your club path or club direction. So that's obviously a part where Trackman is a lot better, because then you can see actually what your club face is doing, what your club path's doing, what your swing direction's doing through impact. So when you're doing it with the Trackman, obviously it's a lot more accurate, and you've got them numbers which are really useful. But with the SkyTrak, for just seeing a ball fly, actually things are really good. So when you're looking at the bottom there, you can look through the numbers. I mean, lesson-wise, we've sort of found out that ball speed and club speed can move around a little bit. It can depend quite a lot on whether you hit the middle of the club face. If you toe it or heel it or even catch it a little bit heavy, it just comes out with some slightly unusual numbers. So them numbers, for me, I don't really look at them too much. Backspin, again, is a little bit unreliable. Launch angle, in my experience with it, has been quite good. Side spin and side angle, we don't really tend to look at them numbers too much, so we use it more as a bit of a ball flight kind of based launch monitor. So if you're kind of looking at setting something up and you just really, after hitting some balls, looking at a ball fly, looking at how far things go, it's actually a really good launch monitor for that. And then you get a few different settings at the top. So we've got it set on yards at the minute. At the top, you can obviously change it to right and left-handed. You can change it from yards to meters. So some people just prefer the meters section. And then you've got a few different options up this side part as well. So you've got shot optimizer. So you can press onto that, and then it kind of gives you what your optimal launch angle is, what your optimal backspin is, and what your optimal descent angle is. And ideally you want to get all of them in green for you to then max out on the distance. And then you can kind of just play around, just having it set on that setting, firing some shots away, and actually just looking at them numbers and going, right, I need to try and get all of them in green, and actually working towards that, which we've found quite useful. When you then come off of this, you go up to the side again, you can see a a bit of a different display. So instead of just seeing the ball fly, you can then go onto that setting. It just gives you a bit of a different, if you're just hitting balls and you just want to check one certain thing, you could then be trying to work towards, getting the ball just a little bit less offline. So on that right hand side it says 15 yards to the right, so you can look at it and go, right, I need to try and get that going a bit more left. You can look at your club speed and just be working towards getting the club speed, and it's just more of a different visual than just seeing the ball flying. When you then come off of this part again and go onto it, you've got shot history. So obviously we've only hit one shot, but it gives you all of the data from all of the shots that you've hit. So then when you're actually doing a session, you can look through and go, right, I was hitting it really good for them shots. I was striking it really good. This is my average carry. This is how far it is offline or online. And it gives you some quite decent feedback, which we found useful. Coming out of the range setting, obviously when you then change clubs, so if we're kind of going then up to 7-iron, see the part at the bottom there is just turned red. So then all of that means is that when you hit a shot, instead of it coming up with a white ball flight, it will come up with a red ball flight. Just so when you then go, onto the part where you check all of your ball flights, you get a couple of different colours. And when you see the different colours, you can kind of see whether you're being consistent or whether you're being accurate with it. Going on to the next part, so if we're kind of exiting this part here, we come then back onto the home screen. Once we're then back onto the home screen, we get a couple of different added parts. It's important to say as well that depending on what package you buy with the SkyTrak, which you have to renew every year, depends on whether you can access these parts or not. So if you've got the basic package, which is free, you only really get the range. You can only see the ball fly, it doesn't even follow the ball, it just kind of as if you're on a range. And in my opinion on it, the free one, the basic one that you get given, isn't very good. So you're just hitting some shots, it ends up getting very boring, you can't really play any games on it. So we've got the game improvement package. We did have the playing package, so the one where you can actually play golf courses on it as well. For us, we found the golf course is a little bit unreliable, which is partly the reason why we're updating to Trackman. Because Trackman, the golf courses are obviously incredible on there, the data that you get is perfect, and everything's in HD when you match it up with the right computer. So just double check when you're looking at what package to get. I'd probably recommend getting the middle one, which is the game improvement one, because the golf courses, unless you've got the HD computer, and even then it gets a little bit unreliable. So obviously if you do have the money available, I'd possibly go more towards Trackman or looking at a slightly different launch monitor if you wanted to play more of the golf courses kind of option with it. So then with the game improvement package, you then get target practice, longest drive, closest to the pin. So if you kind of have people over, closest to the pin is quite good fun. So then once you're on this section, you can select how many people you want, which can go up to 6. You go onto there, it sets you up here. You can go onto there, how many shots you want to hit, so 3 or 6. And then you set a yardage out there, so let's say we're looking at 190 yards. It then sets you up there and goes, right, it puts a pin out in the distance, and however far you are away, you can kind of go against people that you're playing with. So ball again goes onto the red dot, you just fire towards the screen, and it kind of gives you a setting there where you can see the ball flight, but instead of it just going out onto a range, it goes out onto a green. So I've missed the green to the right there, it tells you how far you are away. Then it gives you the next person to go, so you can you end up hitting 3 or 6 shots, and you see who gets the closest, and it's quite a good way to practice, and it's quite a good way to make it fun. But again, that's only a section that's available with the game improvement package rather than the basic package. Going on to this part, so if we exit that, then go back onto the main board again. Once we're on this part, again, you've got target practice, which kind of works a little bit differently than what closest to the pin does, but it's more or less kind of the same principle. Longest drive, which is always quite fun as well, and you set it up very similar to what you do with the nearest to the pin. Select how many players that you've got, and then from there it then puts you into a driving range, and then instead of it kind of being nearest to the pin, obviously you can just hit it as hard as you can. And when you hit it as hard as you can, it just takes the yardage of your furthest shot. So if you're hitting the ball out, again, it doesn't matter if it goes straight, you just fire across. It gives you some kind of range look there, and then as you're hitting balls, it just measures your longest shots. It goes, right, you've hit it that far, and then it gives you a bit of a leaderboard, and then you can then play against people with that format as well, which again we found it's quite fun. It's quite useful. And then coming out of this section, again, I think that SkyTrak in some parts have kind of copied Trackman, because the parts that are then available when you go onto the right hand section on the main screen is game improvement. So bag mapping, which we've actually found really useful. We do a lot of club gappings, and it gives you a really good PDF document at the end. So when you actually go through it, it gives you a really in-depth look as to how far each club's gone, what your shot tendency is with that club. And then it lets you go all the way through the bag, gives you kind of all the data that you need, and that's actually been fantastic. I'd probably rate that bag mapping section out of the whole thing completely 10 out of 10, so that's really good. When you then go up to skills assessment and wedge matrix, again, that's the part where I think that SkyTrak have almost kind of copied Trackman's path of it. A lot of people know that you can do the Trackman test, and it gives you kind of an overall score. And SkyTrak have kind of followed that path of doing a bit of a skills assessment, which then gives you an overall handicap. What I would say with the handicap section with that, I mean, I've done that a few times, the handicap isn't very generous. It's always a little bit higher probably than what you'd think. If you strike it really good and you feel like you're hitting it towards the pin quite a lot, it gives you a slightly higher handicap probably than what you deserve. Well, Trackman is again kind of completely based on what you would fully deserve. So again, Trackman have kind of got that part absolutely nailed in perfect, but it comes at the cost of being a lot more than what obviously the SkyTrak is. Wedge matrix is more of kind of a wedge part where you're just working on a wedge game, which again we found quite useful. Looking at what the bag mapping part gets you, so if we come actually out of the whole screen, it gets you these PDF documents. So then when you then click onto this, you can send it obviously to your lessons email, or if you're just doing it for yourself, you can send it to your phone. So when you're out in the golf course, you can look at how far you've got into the pin and actually work towards what the data actually gives you. And then once we come up to here, we'll wait until it all loads up. It gives you this kind of data. So when we're looking through that, it kind of tells you your gapping, shows you how far each club's gone, the trajectory of each club, really useful. And then I won't obviously go too much in depth with this, but it gives you quite a lot of good feedback with the shot pattern per shot. Gives you a bit of data on exactly how far each club's gone. And it's just quite useful that when you're actually out playing, you can then look and go, right, my 4-iron average carries at 204 yards. This was one of my lessons. So then you can look at that and go, right, I've got 210 yards into the pin, I've got water short, right, I can't be using 4-iron because it carries at 204. And at least then you kind of know that's exactly how far the ball goes. And it gives you a really good idea as to what club you should be hitting into the greens if you know how far you've got into the pin. And then it kind of gives you just a bit of data that you can look through with that section. So overall with the SkyTrak, personally I'd probably rate it 8 out of 10. The customer support section with SkyTrak we've found reasonable, I'd say okay. At the beginning when we first got our SkyTrak launch monitor, then we had a problem with it, and then we had to then end up with this one. Since we've had that, I think we've had a couple of days where we have a slight problem with the dot, almost like a red laser comes onto the ball and it doesn't quite pick the ball flight up, but then that usually means it needs an update or you need to reset it. But overall, yeah, I'd say 8 out of 10. Value for money, I think, is really good. Again, with a lot of the launch monitors that are on the market, they tend to go really expensive. Obviously, you've got Trackman out there, you've got GC2, you've got quite a lot of expensive launch monitors, and SkyTrak, I think, value for money is actually really good. But again, just look at the hidden cost of what package you might get. Whether you want to use golf courses, whether you just want to use it for a range, and just sort of look a little bit more in depth into what packages they have as well, because there can be a couple of hidden costs on that front. But if you have any questions about it, just fire in the comments section below. Just ask across any questions that you might have. Again, it's like it's one of them parts where when you haven't used it very much, you don't really know too much about it. So you might have any questions that sound really silly or how to set it up. Just fire across and I can help across with that as well. And if you like the video, please subscribe below. I'm going to do one with Trackman as soon as we get it in, and it'd be great to have your feedback.